Tonight, millions of people are falling asleep beside glowing screens. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is lying in a dark bedroom with the blue light of a phone washing over their face. They are scrolling. They are not sure why they are scrolling. They started scrolling because they were tired and wanted to wind down, but somehow the scrolling is doing the opposite. It is keeping them just awake enough to keep scrolling, which keeps them awake enough to keep scrolling, and so on, in a quiet, dim loop that they cannot seem to find the exit for. In another city, a train is rattling through a tunnel. It is packed with people, every seat taken, every handrail gripped by someone standing, and not a single person on that train is making eye contact with anyone else. Not one conversation is happening. Not one person is looking up from their phone or their shoes or the middle distance. All of them are alone together, which is a very strange way to be when you think about it. Outside, somewhere in an enormous city, cars are moving through streets that never fully go quiet. The lights never really go out. The noise never really stops. There is a fast food place with a drive-thru that is open right now, at this hour, serving food to cars full of people who are eating alone inside those cars. A television is playing in a room that no one is watching. A notification pops up on a phone that nobody picks up. A refrigerator hums, an air conditioner sighs. Somewhere, an alarm goes off. And somewhere else, someone hits the snooze button, which is one of the most modern things a human being can do. Negotiate with time, buy yourself 9 more minutes. Try to squeeze a little more sleep into a night that started too late and is ending too soon. We are surrounded by machines. We are surrounded by noise. We are surrounded by light that comes from everywhere and nowhere. We are surrounded by information. So much information that even if you spent every waking hour of your entire life consuming it, you would not make a dent in the amount that is being produced right now, tonight, while you are lying here trying to rest. And yet, a lot of us feel very, very alone. Not the alone of being by yourself in a beautiful way. The quiet, peaceful, restorative kind of alone that is actually good for you. The other kind. The kind that sits in the middle of a crowded room and doesn't know how to get out. The kind that has 300 friends on the internet and nobody to call at 2 in the morning. The kind that is very busy, very connected, very informed, and somehow, underneath all of it, quietly starving for something it cannot name. So tonight, let's slow down, let's dim the lights, get comfortable, and ask a question that sounds simple at first. One of those questions that you can hold in your hand for a moment and think, yes, I know the answer to that, and then it slowly opens up into something much larger, much stranger, much more interesting than you expected. The question is this: if an ancient human, a real one, from tens of thousands of years ago, someone who lived before cities and cars and electricity and the internet and supermarkets and alarm clocks, if that person suddenly appeared beside you tonight, would they understand anything about your life? Would they understand why you are staring at a glowing rectangle before you sleep? Would they understand why you live surrounded by strangers who never speak to you? Would they understand why you eat food that came from a factory instead of from the ground? Or why it comes in a box with a cartoon on it? Or why it is the same no matter what season it is or where in the world you are? Would they understand why you are awake at midnight, when every signal in the natural world is whispering, and has been whispering to your kind for millions of years, that it is time to rest? And here is the question that might keep you up a little longer than you planned, the one hiding inside all those other questions. Would that ancient human look at modern human life and think we had it figured out? Or would they look at us the way you look at someone who is clearly very busy, very capable, very clever with their hands and their tools, and yet somehow in the middle of all that busyness, missing the whole point? Let's find out. Take a breath, get comfortable. We have plenty of time tonight. This is going to be a long, slow, beautiful journey. Part 1. Who we're talking about. Before we drop our ancient visitor into the modern world, we need to understand who he actually is. Not who we imagine him to be, who he actually was. There is a version of the ancient human that lives in popular imagination that is not entirely accurate. The grunt and point version. The club-dragging, fire-confused, basically a smarter animal version. That version is wrong, and it has been wrong for a long time, and science has been quietly correcting it for decades. Let's build an accurate picture instead. Let's call our ancient visitor Kael. That is not a real ancient name, we made it up for the sake of having something to call him, but Kael is as real and as complete a human being as anyone who ever walked this earth. In many ways, he is more connected to the deep architecture of what it means to be human than almost anyone living today. Kael is a hunter-gatherer. He lives on a broad open landscape somewhere in the warm part of the world, in a time before agriculture changed everything. Around 12,000 years ago, farming began to spread across different parts of the globe. Before that, every human being on Earth, every single one, no exceptions, lived the way Kale lives. They hunted, they gathered, they moved through the landscape, they knew the land, they knew the seasons, they knew each other. Kale's group is small, about 40 to 50 people, not 100, not 1,000, not an apartment building full of strangers, just 40 to 50 individuals who are either related to him by blood or have been close enough to his life for long enough that the difference barely matters. He has known every single face in his group since he was a small child. He knows their voices, could identify each one in full darkness, from a distance over the sound of the wind. He knows which ones snore. He knows which ones wake early before the rest, and sit quietly watching the light come. He knows who has a short temper when they're hungry and who becomes gentle and unusually calm when things go wrong. He knows who tells the best stories and who laughs the loudest and who can cry without making a sound. These 50 people are, in a real and complete sense, his entire world, not his whole universe. Kyle knows there are other groups, other bands, other people beyond his territory. He has met some of them at seasonal gatherings. He has traded with some of them. He might even have a particular friend in another group, someone he sees once or twice a year and feels a warmth for, that is different from the everyday warmth of his immediate band. But in terms of his daily life, in terms of the people who shape his days and his sense of who he is, 50 is the number. 50 known, trusted, familiar faces, 50 people for whom he would give his last piece of food, 50 people who would do the same for him. He wakes up every morning when the sky begins to lighten, not because an alarm tells him to, not because a schedule demands it, not because something outside his body is deciding when his rest is over, because his body, the body that has been calibrated over millions of years of evolution to respond to changes in light, simply wakes itself up the way it has always done, the way it was built to do. The darkness becomes a deep grey, the deep grey begins to take on a faintly cooler quality. The horizon, if you watch it carefully from somewhere with an open view, begins to separate from the sky. The land becoming distinct, gaining edge. The pale purple of pre-dawn arrives, and then the first thin, almost impossible line of orange low on the horizon, and Kyle's eyes open. Not all the way at once, slowly the way waking is supposed to happen when it happens naturally. His body temperature has been rising for the last hour. A hormone called cortisol, the one that prepares your body for activity and alertness, has been climbing gently since before he opened his eyes. He comes to himself gradually, like a river finding its depth after a quiet stretch. When the sun goes down and the fire at the center of the group begins to burn lower, when the stories slow and the silences between them grow longer and more comfortable, when the darkness gets very deep and very full, when the sky above him is so dense with stars that it does not look like a sky with stars in it so much as it looks like a vast, breathing, luminous thing, then Kyle sleeps. His body temperature drops a little, his heartbeat slows, his brain begins the complex, essential, irreplaceable work of repair and consolidation that it can only do in real sleep, in real darkness, in the kind of silence that is not empty but full of the sounds of the world doing what it does when no one is demanding anything of it. His life moves in rhythm with the world, the way a song moves in rhythm with itself, the way the tides move in rhythm with the moon. Something old and right and unforced. During the day, Kyle walks. He walks a great deal. Research into the physical activity of modern hunter-gatherer populations, groups who still maintain aspects of that ancient way of life, finds they walk between 10 and 16 kilometers each day on average. Not on a treadmill going nowhere, not on a track that loops back to its starting point. Through actual terrain, through changing ground and varying elevation and the unpredictability of weather, and the completely different problems presented by mud and rocky slopes and dense brush and open plains. His body is strong in the way that a tree that has grown in open ground is strong, not just large, but rooted, balanced, functional at every angle. He reads the world the way you read a face, quickly, automatically, without needing to slow down and consciously work through the steps. He knows which animals have passed through an area by the shape of a footprint and how dried the edges of the track have become. He knows which direction the wind is coming from without looking up, just from the particular feeling of it on his skin. He knows which plants are safe to eat by their smell and the texture of their leaves and the time of year and the kind of soil they are growing in. He knows when rain is coming from the behavior of certain birds, from a particular quality in the afternoon light, from a smell in the air that you or I would not even register as a smell at all, just an almost feeling, a vague awareness that something has shifted. He is not doing this through any supernatural ability. He is doing it by paying attention, by being genuinely, completely present in his environment in a way that modern life rarely allows and rarely asks for. Attention is a muscle. Use it every day on something that directly affects whether you and the people you love survive, and it becomes extraordinarily sharp. And he is incredibly, genuinely, fully intelligent. This matters. It matters so much that we need to stop here and say it clearly before we go any further, because it changes everything about how this whole conversation works. For a long time, and not just in the distant past, this assumption lingered well into the 20th century, and echoes of it are still around today. Many people made the mistake of thinking that ancient humans were somehow less mentally capable than modern ones, less sophisticated, more instinctual, and less rational. The word primitive carried this idea with it, that intelligence evolved gradually, like height, and that people who lived closer to the beginning of our species were simply not as developed in the mind as people today. This is incorrect. Research published in the journal Science Advances found that the brain size of early Homo sapiens already fell within the full range of modern human brain sizes as far back as approximately 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years. The hardware has been modern for an extraordinarily long time, and a study published in 2026 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, led by researchers at Indiana University, found that the estimated cognitive difference between Neanderthals, our closest evolutionary relatives, who lived alongside early modern humans for tens of thousands of years, and early Homo sapiens has been significantly overstated. The differences between Neanderthal brain structures and modern human brain structures, the study found, actually fall within the range of normal variation you would find between different living human populations today. The cognitive gap, in the words of the research itself, would have been extremely small. What this means, in plain language that is easier to hold on to, is this. Kale's brain, the brain of a hunter-gatherer who lived thousands of years before the internet or agriculture, or cities or written language, is, for all real purposes, the same brain you are using right now, same architecture, same wiring, same capacity for learning and reasoning, and creativity and emotional depth, and abstract thought and humour and grief, and curiosity and wonder. The difference is not in the hardware. The difference is entirely in what the hardware has been taught to run. Kale's mind has been trained by a world of real, immediate physical stakes. A world where the information that matters most comes from wind and soil and cloud and animal behaviour and the faces and the voices of the 50 people sleeping near him. A world where every problem you solve has direct and visible consequences. A world where the skills that keep you alive involve your whole body. Not just your fingertips onto screen, but your legs and your eyes and your sense of smell and your ability to remain completely still for a very long time. His intelligence is not less than yours. It is pointed at different things. And now, let's drop Kale into yours. Part 2. He arrives at midnight. It is midnight. Imagine that Kale opens his eyes and he is standing on a pavement in the middle of a city, not at the edge of it, where the buildings begin to thin and a few trees might still be visible. Right in the middle of it, on a busy street, under the lights, at the hour when cities are at their most themselves, which is to say still going, still lit, still full of movement and noise even now, even at this hour, because modern cities do not have an off switch. The first thing he notices is the light. Not the smell, not the sound, the light. Because the light is wrong in a way that his whole body feels before his mind has even begun to process it. In Kale's experience, light at night comes from 3 sources, and 3 sources only. The moon, which is cold and blue silver and changes every night, growing brighter as it fills and dimmer as it empties, casting ketchupus that are long and strange, and sometimes bright enough to walk by and sometimes barely there at all. These stars, which are so numerous in his sky, untouched by any competing glow, that they form a river of white light across the darkness, a presence so overwhelming that the concept of a night sky without them would simply not occur to him. And fire. Warm, orange, living fire that breathes and moves and must be fed and tended and will die if you are not paying attention to it. The light in this city is none of those things. It is orange, yes, some of it, from the streetlights, but it is an orange without warmth, an orange that does not flicker, an orange that does not require anyone's attention. It is also white, a cold, harsh white from the gaze headlights of cars, and blue, the particular shade of blue that LED screens produce, the most biologically disruptive wavelength of light a human being can be exposed to at night, because it is the wavelength that most powerfully signals to the ancient chemistry of the body. It is still daytime, stay awake, and there is neon, red, pink, yellow, green, colours that fire does not make, colours that exist in the natural world but never at this intensity, and never at night, and never coming from all directions at once. The light is everywhere. There is no part of this city that is dark. Not a corner, not an alley, not the underside of a bridge or the space between two buildings. Everything glows with its own light or reflects the light of something nearby. The street glows, the windows glow, the sky itself glows, not with stars, not here, but with a broad orange-brown dome of reflected light pressing down over the whole city, a barrier between the city below and the universe above, blocking out everything except the very brightest planets and stars. Research from the National Geographic Society tells us that around 80% of the world's population today lives under significant artificial light at night. Scientists and medical researchers have been watching what this does to human biology with increasing attention and increasing concern. The link between artificial light at night and disrupted melatonin production is well established. Melatonin, the hormone that your body uses to signal to itself that it is time to sleep, and which is involved in immune function and dozens of other biological processes, is produced in response to darkness. Specifically in response to the reduction of blue wavelength light reaching the eyes. When there is no darkness, when the bedroom glows with a screen or a street lamp or a charging device, when the body never receives the ancient biological signal that says, the day is over, begin the repair, the system is disrupted. A report produced for the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences noted something worth sitting with. It said, it may not be entirely coincidental that dramatic increases in certain health conditions have mirrored the dramatic changes in the amount and pattern of artificial light that humans are exposed to at night. Light pollution, noted the researchers, is one of the defining characteristics of modern life. And we are biological creatures who were never, in our entire evolutionary history, supposed to experience it. Kale does not have the vocabulary for any of this. He does not know about melatonin or circadian rhythms or light wavelengths. What he has is his body, which is extremely good at its job, and which is telling him something quite clearly. This is wrong. Not dangerous. His nervous system is scanning and not finding a specific immediate threat. But wrong in the way that a note played slightly flat is wrong. In the way that food that smells fine but tastes strange is wrong. In the way that a smile that doesn't reach the eyes is wrong. Something in the fundamental logic of the world has been altered, and every calibrated sensor in his ancient, brilliant body is registering the alteration. He keeps looking, and then he sees the people. Part 3. People who are alone together. There are people everywhere. More people in this one street than Kale has ever seen in one place in his entire life. More people than he has words to describe. More people than his brain was ever built to track or categorize or make sense of all at once. They are walking past each other. They are standing at corners. They are inside the glass-fronted buildings, visible through the windows, moving through lit rooms. They are sitting in the metal boxes that roll along the ground, those impossible, roaring, light-throwing machines that we will come back to, and every single one of them is alone. This does not make sense to Kale. He knows what alone looks like. He knows the body language of it, the particular stillness of someone who has gotten separated from their group, the watchfulness that sits slightly behind the eyes of a person who is aware of their own vulnerability, the held quality of a body that is alone in a way that is not safe. He has seen people alone before. It is always, in his experience, a temporary and uncomfortable state, something to be corrected, something to be moved back from as quickly as possible. But these people are not alone because they got separated from their group. They are alone while surrounded by hundreds of other people. They are alone because, and this is the thing that would take Kyle a long time to begin to understand, they are strangers to each other. All of them. Every single person on this street is surrounded by people they do not know and have never spoken to and will never speak to, and are actively, consistently, culturally trained to avoid making real connection with. This is not the accidental aloneness of someone who got lost. This is a chosen and maintained and structurally enforced aloneness that modern humans have decided, somewhere in the development of urban civilization, is simply how things work. Nobody talks. This above everything is the thing that would stop Kale. He lives in a world where silence between two people who are near each other is not neutral, is never just empty. Silence is either comfortable and full, the specific silence of two people sitting near a fire who have nothing left to say and are perfectly content to be near each other. The silence that is its own kind of communication, or it is meaningful in some other, more serious way, carrying weight, indicating something that needs addressing. Silence between people who have just encountered each other is filled almost immediately because in Kayal's world, you cannot afford to leave unknown people near you unacknowledged. Unknown people are either becoming known, which makes them part of the wider network and therefore potentially safe, or they are not yet known, which means they require attention and negotiation. But here, the silence is the standard. It is the policy. It is the unmarked norm. People are within arm's reach of each other, and they're looking at their phones, or they are looking at the street ahead, or they are looking at the specific middle distance point that people in cities learn to look at, just far enough past everyone around them that the other people don't quite register as individuals. You exist in proximity to strangers without seeing them as people. You look without looking. You are present without being present. A study by anthropologist Polly Wiesner, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, spent years following the Jew/Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert, a hunter-gatherer group who still maintain significant aspects of the ancient way of life. She documented something that tells us a great deal about what the evening is supposed to be for. During the day, conversations in the group were mostly practical. What did we find? Where are we going? Who is doing what today? When are we moving on? But after the sun went down, after the fire had been built up and the work of the day was finished, something shifted. More than 80% of the conversations that happened around the fire at night were storytelling. Not logistics, not planning, not dispute resolution. Stories. About people in other groups. About what happened to someone long ago. About the spirit world. About the past and the future and the meaning of things. Stories that built shared understanding. Stories that said, I went through something and here is the shape of it, and now it belongs to all of us. Stories that took private experience and made it communal. Stories that were the glue, the ceremony, the invisible architecture of the community. In this modern city street, Kale is surrounded by perhaps hundreds of people who each carry inside them a complete life of experience. Years of private feeling and private knowledge and the particular texture of their individual hardships and joys. And none of it is being shared. None of it is being spoken. It is all sealed inside those small bright screens, or sitting in the careful silence of a person who has learned not to reach out. He would look at this crowd and feel something his language might not have a word for, something between pity and grief, something that is close to the feeling of watching a fire go out. He would have no way to know that this feeling he is having is shared by people inside this very crowd. That surveys consistently find significant percentages of people in modern cities report feeling chronically lonely. That between 1990 and 2010, the number of Americans who reported having no close confidants, no one they could really talk to about the hard things, tripled. That social isolation has been associated by researchers with health risks comparable in magnitude to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. He would have no way to know all that, but his body would already understand the shape of it. Part 4. The little glowing machines. Now let's let Kale look more closely at the devices. He has noticed them. Everyone here seems to have one. A small, flat, rectangular object, thin as a slab of smooth stone, that emits its own light from one face. People carry it everywhere. They look at it with the same quality of attention that Kyle's people give to a fire. That slightly open, receptive attention of a mind that is taking something in, rather than reaching outward. A person nearby holds theirs at chest height and presses the face of it with one finger. The light changes. Images appear and vanish, each lasting less than a second before the next one arrives. A face close and detailed, talking quickly. A plate of food, a street in another city, a dog doing something funny, words in a language he cannot read even if he had the concept of written language. Another face, another place, another thing. They keep coming, unstoppable, like a river after heavy rain. The person's finger moves upward again and everything changes again. Their face does not change much as it passes. They are watching everything and absorbing almost nothing. They are present and absent at the same time, in a way that has no equivalent in Kyle's experience. He has sat around fires at night and watched stories being told. He has felt what happens when a genuinely good story moves through a group. He has felt the way a story reaches something in the body, not just the mind. The way your breathing changes, the way certain words land in your chest rather than just in your ears. He has seen people weep at stories and laugh at stories and sit very still at stories and look at each other across the fire with that wordless look that two people exchange when they know they are feeling the same thing at the same time. That is what storytelling does. And storytelling is, anthropologists have argued, one of the critical capacities in human evolution. The ability to take subjective experience and translate it into something that can be shared, that can move from one person to another and become real to the receiver as it was real to the sender. This is how we build culture. This is how we transmit knowledge across generations without requiring each generation to relearn everything from scratch. This is how we create trust with people we have never met, because we have heard stories about them or they have heard stories about us. The thing on that screen is doing something that looks like storytelling. It has images, it has sound, it has movement, it has faces, which your brain is wired from birth to attend to with special heightened interest. More than landscapes, more than abstract shapes, more than almost anything else. But it is feeding these story-shaped things at a rate that prevents any actual story from landing. Nothing has time to mean anything before the next thing is already beginning. It is a river with no banks, so much flowing through it so fast that nothing catches, nothing stays, nothing settles, and the person watching is watching alone. Even if what is on the screen is funny, no one is laughing with them. Even if what is on the screen is moving, no one is there to share the move feeling. Even if what is on the screen is extraordinary, they cannot look up and see that recognition in someone else's face. That small, confirming look that says, yes, I felt that too. We are in this moment together, which means something about both of us. The screen gives you the shape of a story. It removes the sharing. And the sharing, the being together in the feeling, is the part that your brain was actually evolved to need. Not the content itself, the connection through content, the experience of other people experiencing the same thing as you. Science has been tracking what the devices are doing to the ancient systems in your brain, and the findings are not subtle. The brain's reward system, the dopamine pathway that was designed over millions of years to motivate you toward things that help you survive and thrive, things like food and water and social connection and novel information, responds to notifications and likes and the autoload of new content exactly the way it was designed to respond to unexpected positive events in the real world. Each one is a small jolt of the chemical signal that says, this is good, do this more. Researchers at Stanford University have described the mechanism directly. Social media platforms have essentially weaponized social connection. They take the neurochemical process that was supposed to draw you toward real, physical, face-to-face human relationship, the process that has been the foundation of human community since before we were fully human, and they activate that process through a screen, giving you the chemical signal without the actual relationship behind it. You get the feeling of connection. You do not get the connection, and the distinction over time is enormous. Cale would look at the person with their phone and feel, not because he is wiser, not because he is above it, but simply because his instincts have not yet been confused by decades of accumulated familiarity with screens. He would feel the strangeness of it, the almostness, the way it is designed around something real while being, at its core, a very good imitation of the real thing. He might think it was a kind of trap. He would not be entirely wrong. Part 5. The Great Hall of Food. Let us walk Cale into a supermarket. He walks through a door that opens by itself as he approaches. This alone would give him pause, the door that sees you coming and moves out of your way, the door that knows you're there before you've touched anything, and enters a space that is unlike any space he has ever been in. The first thing is the cold air hitting him in the face, even though it is not cold outside. Controlled, mechanical cold, manufactured by a machine somewhere behind a wall, piped through the ceiling, maintained at a constant temperature that matches no season, no time of day, no natural condition. This cold does not smell like morning, the way early air does when you step out of a warm sleeping place into a world still cool from the night. It does not smell like a cave or a high mountain pass or a river in late autumn. It smells like almost nothing. And air that smells like almost nothing is, to a person who reads the world through his nose, deeply and quietly alarming. Air always has a smell. Air is always telling you something. Air that tells you nothing is air that is lying to you, or at least withholding something important. Then he looks around, and up, and the sheer scale of it arrives. The ceiling is enormously high and covered entirely in flat, even light that produces no shadows. Every inch of every visible surface is occupied. Shelves running from near the floor to well above any person's head, in both directions, as far as the eye can see in this enormous, cold, bright, shadowless room. Things on every shelf, wrapped things and stacked things, and things in boxes and cans and bottles and bags and plastic-wrapped trays. Things organised in categories whose logic is invisible to someone who has no context for it. Things from places so far away they might as well be from different worlds. Think about what food has meant to Kyle his entire life. Food is not a category. Food is not a section of a room. Food is the organising principle of each day. It is the reason for the walking, the reason for the watching, the reason for the knowing. Without it, there is nothing else. The entire structure of the day and where you go, how long you stay, when you move on, how far you travel, which direction, is organised around the question of where the food is and how to reach it before it moves or ripens or is found by someone else. Kyle knows, not as a hobby, not as a curiosity, but as fundamental life-maintaining knowledge, the name and edible properties of every useful plant in his territory. He knows which parts are edible, at what time of year, how to prepare them if they require preparation. He knows which animals live in which parts of the landscape and when they can be predicted and when they cannot. He knows the signs of water. He knows which kinds of ground produce the best roots in the dry season. He knows the landscape the way a musician knows a piece they have been playing for their entire life, not just the notes but the spaces between the notes, not just the obvious parts but the tiny variations that tell you something the general pattern never would. And here, in this enormous, cold, bright room, is more food than his entire group would eat in several years, more than several years, stacked on shelves from the floor to above his head, organised by a logic he cannot yet follow. Fruits that should belong to particular seasons but are here regardless. Strawberries in the middle of winter, apples in summer, bananas that do not belong to any season he has ever experienced because they come from a climate so different from anything in his territory that the concept itself would be foreign. Meats cut into shapes that no longer resemble the animals they came from. Pink, flat, uniformly sized slices in sealed clear packaging. Nothing about them says, this was once a living creature that walked and breathed and had a body temperature. The story of how an animal becomes food has been completely erased. And Kyle, who has hunted, who has made that transformation happen with his own hands and has felt the weight of it, the understanding of what the killing means and what the eating means, would find the erasure deeply unsettling. He picks up a box with a cartoon character on it. He smells it. His nose, capable of extraordinary subtlety, trained over decades to detect meaningful information in the air, receives a single, flat, intense sweetness with no origin. Not the sweetness of wild berries, which are complex and slightly tart and slightly bitter and different every season, and carry the smell of the plant they grew on and the particular summer's worth of sun they received. Just sweetness. One-dimensional manufactured sweetness, intense and uniform and telling him nothing. He eats one of the small coloured rings inside. Sweet, then gone. He eats another. Sweet, then gone. His body says, yes, energy, sweet things are often nutritious, but underneath that basic signal there is nothing else. No complexity, no information about what made this. No story, no context, just a sweetness. And then the immediate arrival of wanting more sweetness because the signal that was supposed to say you have found something valuable never quite completes itself. He puts the box down. Research in evolutionary nutrition has found consistently that the ancestral human diet, the extraordinarily diverse array of wild plants and animals that our biology was shaped by over millions of years, was nutritionally rich in ways that modern processed food is not. Archaeological evidence shows ancient human populations with remarkably good dental health, strong bones, and bodies that were well nourished and physically capable. Modern industrialized food, particularly the ultra-processed category that now makes up a growing proportion of what people in wealthy countries eat, has been engineered not for nutritional completeness, but for what food scientists call palatability, the particular combination of sweetness, salt, and fat that triggers the brain's most ancient reward signals. Your brain evolved to respond powerfully to that combination because in the wild, finding something that was sweet and salty and fatty all at once was extremely rare and signaled something genuinely calorie-dense and valuable. The signal meant, eat as much of this as you can right now because you do not know when you will find it again. Eat past comfort. Store the energy. Modern food companies know this. They have employed the knowledge deliberately. The result is food designed to make your ancient brain say more, keep going, while providing the calories without the nutritional depth that your body's cells are actually asking for. Kale would walk slowly out of the supermarket, and he would be hungry. Not because he hadn't eaten, but because none of what he tasted had told his body what it needed to know. Part 6. The speed that never stops. Let's give Kale a full day to move through the city. Not a guided tour, not a planned experience. Just a day of watching. And the thing he notices most, more than the food, more even than the strangeness of the light, is the speed. Everything moves fast. The metal boxes on the road, the cars, move fast. Kale understands fast. He has sprinted. He has chased animals and been chased. He has seen rivers in flood and birds in a dive and summer storms moving across the open landscape at remarkable speed. He understands speed, but the speed of cars is a different kind entirely. It is mechanical speed. Speed with no breath in it. Speed that does not respond to the condition of the terrain or the effort it costs or the distance already covered. A car does not get tired on the 15th kilometre. It does not slow because the slope is steep or because it has been running for a long time. It maintains its speed with a blank, relentless consistency that has no equivalent in anything that lives. And the people, even the people who are walking fast. Forward-leaning, eyes fixed ahead, with the particular body language of someone who is already slightly behind on something they needed to do. Even when there is no emergency, even when there is nothing visible to be rushing toward. In Kale's world, urgency is a temporary and specific state. You move fast when something requires it. An animal that will escape if you slow down, a storm that is approaching, something that needs immediate response. But urgency resolves, the hunt ends, the storm passes, the emergency is addressed. And then you rest. You walk back, you sit, you eat something slowly. The pace of your life breathes in and out, exertion and recovery, engagement and withdrawal, the effort and the rest. Modern life does not breathe. It is all forward motion, all exertion, all is engagement. And the urgency never fully resolves because it is not being produced by specific, identifiable threats that have a natural endpoint. It is being produced by a system, by the accumulated weight of schedules and deadlines and communications and commitments that runs continuously and does not have a natural stopping point. There is always another message, always another task, always a meeting after the meeting and a notification after the notification. The inbox is never truly empty. The to-do list never fully clears. Anthropologist James Suzman spent years with the Jew/Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert studying the nature of work and time in hunter-gatherer life, and his findings were genuinely surprising. These people, living as hunter-gatherers in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, worked approximately 15 hours per week. 15? And much of what might be counted as work involved activities that people in modern cities would call leisure. Slow walks, fishing, gathering while talking, sitting together. They were not exhausted. They were not running at capacity. They had vast amounts of unscheduled time, and that time was not empty. It was full of conversation, storytelling, rest, play, and the quiet pleasure of being alive without being urgently demanded of. Kale would look at a busy intersection at rush hour and see something he has no word for. The particular hollowness behind the eyes of people who have been in a state of low-level, continuous, unresolved alertness for so long that they can no longer quite remember what it felt like to not be. The thin, burned quality of a person running a deficit that is never being repaid. Not sick, not in immediate danger, but spending from a resource that is not being adequately restored. He would look at this and think, in whatever form this thought would take in his pre-verbal or differently verbal mind, these people are not well, and he would be right, in ways that a modern medicine is only beginning to articulate. Part 7. The Night That Never Gets Dark. Let's come back to the light, because it matters more than it first seemed. In Kale's world, night is a real thing, a complete thing, not something reduced and held at bay by technology. It arrives fully, properly, in its whole dark dimension. You have almost certainly never experienced genuine darkness. Not the darkness of a room where the curtains are drawn, but the charging cable still glows and the streetlights still come through the gap at the bottom. The real thing. The darkness that existed for every human being who ever lived before approximately 1880. The kind of darkness in which you cannot see your hand in front of your face. The kind in which the only lights are the stars. And because there is nothing competing with them, you can see all of them. Not just the bright handful that modern city dwellers can find. All of them. The full thick of the Milky Way arching across the sky, so dense it casts a faint light of its own, so present that navigating by it is not a metaphor but a practical skill. This darkness was not frightening to people who knew it. It was familiar. It was home. It was the signal sent by the universe itself that the day was finished, that the body could begin its slow descent into repair, and your body still responds to it. Or rather, your body still responds to its absence. The melatonin system, the chemical process by which your body recognizes that it is time to sleep and begins the long chain of biological events that deep restorative rest requires, is triggered by the reduction of blue wavelength light reaching the photoreceptor cells in the back of your eyes. This is not a voluntary process. It is not something you choose to do or can decide to skip. It is written into the chemistry at a level that predates the human species by hundreds of millions of years. When there is no darkness, when the bedroom is lit by a phone screen, when the streetlight comes through the curtain, when the television is still on and the laptop is open on the bed, and the kid's charging cable glows blue, the melatonin signal is suppressed. The body's most ancient cue for rest is being continuously drowned out by the most modern of our habits. Studies estimate that around 80% of the world's population experiences significant artificial light at night. Scientists have noted that this represents a change so rapid and so historically unprecedented that biological evolution has had essentially no time to respond to it. One researcher put it simply: the vast majority of human evolution happened in conditions of bright days, dim evenings, and completely dark nights. We have changed all three of those conditions fundamentally, and some people, the research suggests, will not be fine with that. Kale, sitting in this city at midnight, would feel it in his body. Not just the visual wrongness, the biological wrongness, the particular low-level agitation of a system waiting for a signal that is not coming. His body is ready to begin the slow descent toward rest. All the chemistry is moving in that direction, but the ancient trigger, the darkness, the cooling, the quieting, is not arriving. And he would look at the lit windows of the buildings around him, all those hundreds of small rectangles of light, all those sealed rooms with all those separate lives, and understand something that most modern people have made their peace with without ever consciously examining. People here do not sleep when it is dark. They sleep when they have decided to sleep, or when they can no longer keep going, or when the schedule finally releases them. They sleep at the end of a day that ended not because the light failed, but because enough tasks were completed, or enough content was consumed, or simply because the body finally demanded it. And the kind of sleep you fall into when you have naturally followed the darkening of the world into rest is not the same as the kind you fall into at midnight after 2 hours of screen light. They allow the body different depths of repair, different qualities of recovery, and the difference over weeks and months and years becomes a kind of deficit that is very difficult to name, but very easy to feel. Kale would find a quiet place and lie down. He would pull the available darkness around him and sleep in the way that human bodies are designed to sleep, completely, deeply surrendered to it, while the city kept all its lights burning. Part 8. What he would recognize. We have been talking a great deal about what would confuse Kyle, what would overwhelm him, what would feel wrong or strange or impossible to fit into any category he has ever encountered. But here is the turn. Here is where honesty requires us to go. Because for all the strangeness, for all the things that have no equivalent in his world, there are things he would recognize, immediately, without needing to learn them or adjust to them or be shown how they work. Things that would hit him in the chest with the warmth of recognition, the way you feel when you see your own face in a mirror, and for a fraction of a second before self-consciousness arrives, you simply see a person you know. He would understand a mother holding a child. You could drop Kale anywhere in the world, in any century, in any culture, and he would understand that gesture, completely, without translation, the particular curve of the arm, the way she tilts her head. The quality of attention that is total in a way that almost no other form of attention quite is, that is one of the oldest images in human experience. Before we were this species, before language and fire and story, the ones we came from held their young that way. Before them, the ones they came from, is a gesture so old it precedes everything else we think of as human. He would understand laughter. Not just the sound, though genuine laughter is one of the most immediately communicative sounds that exists, one of the very few that carries meaning across all language barriers, across all cultural distance. But the body language of it, the way it arrives suddenly and takes over the whole body for a moment, the way it spreads from one person to another, the way a person who is really laughing cannot help themselves from laughing more when they see someone else starting. Laughter is contagious for the same reason that fear is contagious. Because in a group, synchronized emotional response is adaptive. When everyone responds to the same thing at the same time, it creates cohesion. Shared feeling is bonding. He would understand a meal being shared, even if the food is strange and the table is made of things he has never seen and the chairs are unlike any place he has ever sat. If people are eating together, passing things, talking, filling each other's cups, in the social choreography of a shared meal, he would feel it in his bones. Because that choreography is extraordinarily old. Sharing food is one of the most foundational social acts of our species. It says, I have enough to give some of it to you. It says, you are in my group. It says, we are safe enough right now to sit down. He would understand grief. There is no version of being human that does not include loss. And the body language of grief, the way it changes the face, the particular heaviness of someone who has just received terrible news, the way the eyes seem to look inward rather than outward. Kyle has seen this. He has felt it. He knows it in the part of him that knows things without being taught them. If he walked past someone sitting alone on a bench, hunched slightly, clearly in the middle of something private and painful, he would stop. He would not walk past. His body would not let him walk past. Because in his world, sitting near someone in pain is the most basic, unconditional form of care. You don't have to say the right thing, you don't have to have an answer, you just don't leave them alone with it. He would understand music, not the specific songs or instruments or genres, but rhythm, the experience of sound organized in time in a way that enters the body through a different door than language uses. Music bypasses thought and arrives somewhere deeper. Every human culture that has ever been documented has had it. Not one exception ever found. Ritual music, lullabies, work-struck songs, songs for grief, songs for celebration, songs for calling things and songs for remembering things. The universality of music is one of the most telling facts about what we actually are. And the reason it moves us, the reason it moved people around ancient fires and moves people in enormous concert halls and moves people alone in a corridor at night with the volume high, is the same reason it has always moved us. Because rhythm is entrainment. When people share a beat, their bodies begin to synchronize. When bodies synchronize, something happens between them that is older than language. And, most importantly for where you are right now, he would understand the desire to tell a story. If someone sat down near Kael in this strange and overwhelming world and simply began to speak, not to explain a machine to him, not to give him instructions or navigate him somewhere, just to speak, in a voice that was calm and low and unhurried, moving through a narrative the way you move through landscape, not rushing, pausing at the interesting places, letting the weight of things land before moving on. Kael would lean in, he would listen, he would feel the story entering him the way all stories have entered all people since we first had them. Through the ears, yes, but also through whatever it is in us that is older than ears, through the part that needs to hear someone else has been through something and they are telling it, which means it was worth telling. The voice you're listening to right now in the dark in your room, it is the fire, and you are sitting around it. That hasn't changed. It is not going to change. Part 9. What would genuinely stop him cold? We said that skyscrapers would not really impress Kael. Let's be precise about why and about what would. A skyscraper, to someone without the accumulated context that gives it meaning, is just a very large thing. Kael has seen very large things. Mountains, cliffs, the canopy of old forests, the great sweep of an open plain under a full sky. The scale of a tall building would register. He would tilt his head back to look at it the way you tilt your head back to look at a cliff. But the meaning would not arrive, because meaning is contextual. Without understanding that human beings built that tower, without the knowledge of the engineering and the material science and the economics and the extraordinary coordination of human effort that went into it, it is simply a large object, impressive the way a waterfall is impressive, but not moving. But there are things in the modern world that would genuinely stop Kael cold, that would require him to stand still and simply look, because his mind has no category for what he's seeing. The airplane. Imagine him looking up, as he does constantly, because the sky is one of the primary sources of information in his world, and seeing something in it that is not a bird. Too large to be a bird, much too large. Moving in a way no bird ever moves, in a perfect, unwavering horizontal line, at a speed no living creature achieves in level flight, without ever once flapping. Leaving a white line in the sky behind it, like a scratch drawn slowly across glass. He would stop. He would watch it for a very long time. Not with fear exactly. It is far away. It is not approaching. But with the absolute full-body attention of someone who has just seen something that does not fit into any category his entire experience has given him. The sky is his reference library of moving things. He has memorized its inhabitants. He can identify every bird in his territory by its flight silhouette, often from a great distance. This is not a bird. This is something that should not be possible by any rule he knows about what the sky contains. And it is, if you actually stop and look at it fresh, an astonishing thing. Human beings have no wings. We are not built for the air in any meaningful way. We are heavy, ground-oriented, deeply terrestrial creatures. And yet we fly. Every day, hundreds of thousands of people are in the air at any given moment, in pressurized metal tubes, at nearly 1,000 kilometers per hour, 8 or 9 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, served drinks in plastic cups, watching films on screens embedded in the seat in front of them, completely, utterly unremarkable to everyone involved. In 1903, the Wright brothers achieved the first powered flight. 12 seconds, about 37 meters, barely above the surface of a beach in North Carolina. In 1969, 66 years later, human beings walked on the moon. From 12 seconds above a beach to footprints on another world, in less than a single human lifetime. Kael would feel the appropriate awe. He would feel the rightness of being stopped by this. He would understand without words for it that this thing in the sky that is too large and too steady and too straight-lined to be anything alive represents something about the capacity of his kind that is worth stopping for. He would also be stopped by a photograph. A still image in precise detail of someone's face, the specific shade of someone's eye, the exact angle of shadow under a cheekbone, the expression that crossed someone's face for half a second and was gone. In Kael's world, images of people are made by people. Cave paintings and engravings, stylized, abstracted, capturing the idea of a person or a creature. They are art, and they are powerful, and his people make them. But they cannot capture this particular face at this particular moment in this particular light. They cannot freeze a half-second expression and hold it perfectly forever. A photograph does. It takes a moment that existed for an instant and is now gone, as all moments are, and makes it stay. It captures the light that was in the room, the specific quality of someone's gaze, the past, made permanently visible in the present. If someone showed Kael a photograph of a living person, and then showed him that person standing beside it, so he could look back and forth between the flat, light-carrying image and the living human, he would understand that he was looking at something miraculous, not metaphorically, actually. A face caught and kept, time-folded, and medicine. He does not need to understand the mechanism. He just needs to watch. A child who was feverish last night, frightening to look at, clearly in danger, and that same child this morning, the fever gone, the colour back running, the healing that happened overnight with help from something in a small bottle, the survival that was not certain but is now. He would weep, without confusion about why. Because this, the healing of a sick child, is the most fundamental possible miracle. The thing that every healer in every human culture since the beginning has been trying to accomplish. And here it happens, quietly, routinely, without ceremony. Another prescription filled, another child saved, another catastrophe quietly averted. This is what would move Kael most about the modern world. Not what we built, what we can now fix. Part 10, The Ancient Human Inside You. Now here is where the whole story turns back on itself. Here is the question that has been building underneath all of this. We have been watching Kael move through the modern world, watching him be overwhelmed by the light, confused by the loneliness, unsatisfied by the food, alarmed by the feed, moved by the tawad, the healing. We have been looking through his eyes at things we live with every day, and through his eyes, we have been learning to see them again. But here's the question. Is Kael actually that different from you? Not in intelligence. We settled that at the beginning. Not in emotional range. Not in the need for connection, or story, or meaning, or rest. Not in the desire to belong to something, to know and be known by a small number of people, to have somewhere that actually feels like home. Not in the hunger, sometimes vague, sometimes sharp, for something slower, something quieter, something that feels genuinely real. The difference, the real difference, is that Kyle is living the life his body was designed for. His instincts and his reality are in alignment. Yours are not because you're doing something wrong, not because you are weak or careless, but because the world changed faster than biology can keep up with. Agriculture, then cities, then industrialization, then the digital age, all of it happening in a blink of evolutionary time. Your body is still, at its deepest level, a hunter-gatherer body. It still runs the sleep software that needs genuine darkness to work properly. It still runs the social software calibrated for a group of 50 known faces, not 50 million strangers. It still runs the hunger software that treats concentrated sweetness and fat as rare and precious signals. It still runs the stress software that evolved for occasional specific physical threats, not for the low-level continuous ambient pressure of modern life that never fully resolves. You're still in your cells and your chemistry and your oldest programming, Kale. You just live in a world that looks nothing like the one Kale was built for. And your body knows. It has been sending signals for a long time, the restlessness after too many hours on a screen, the disproportionate peace that settles over you when you sit somewhere genuinely natural, not just pleasant, but something more, something that feels like relief, like a tension you didn't know you were holding, releasing without you deciding to release it. The unusual warmth of a genuinely present conversation, someone actually looking at you, actually listening, actually there, the way sleep comes differently in a properly dark room, the feeling of eating a real meal, made of real things, eaten slowly, in company that you actually want to be in, and feeling genuinely satisfied, not just full, the particular pleasure of a walk with no destination and no deadline, the way time expands on that walk, the way your thoughts move differently when your body is moving through the actual world rather than sitting still while your mind races, the hunger, vague, background, persistent, for something you cannot quite name, something slower, something quieter, something that matters in a way you can feel rather than just think. That is Kyle. That is the ancient human who lives inside the modern one, the one who has been quiet for a long time, accommodating, adapting, making do with what the modern world provides, but who has not gone anywhere, who is still there, still built the same way, still wanting the same things, who is, if you get still enough, dark enough, quiet enough to hear it, saying something quite clearly. Part 11. What modern life gets exactly right. Before we go further, let's be honest. This kind of storytelling can become its own kind of myth if we are not careful. A romanticized version of ancient life used to criticize the present, while quietly glossing over the genuine and sometimes terrible hardships of the past. So let's be specific about what modern life gets right, not vaguely right. Specifically, demonstrably, irreversibly right in ways that matter enormously. Children live. This is the most important one by a very large margin. In pre-modern, pre-medical human societies, childhood mortality was staggering. Estimates vary by time period and region, but in many ancient populations, somewhere between 30 and 50% of children died before their 5th birthday, from infections that are now treated in 3 days, from fevers that are now brought down with medication available at any pharmacy, from injuries now repaired surgically in a few hours, from illnesses that are now prevented entirely by vaccines. The grief that Kyle has carried, the grief that every person in every pre-modern community carried, for the children who did not make it, is something that has no real equivalent in the experience of someone living in a medically privileged modern society. And the relief, the almost incomprehensible relief of a world where childhood mortality has been dramatically reduced, would be something Kyle could not fully take in until he felt it in his own life. Women lived longer and with more freedom. Childbirth was one of the most dangerous things a human being could experience in the ancient world. Infections, hemorrhage, complications during labour, these killed women in enormous numbers for all of human history until very recently. Modern obstetric medicine has transformed childbirth in a way that is very easy to underestimate when you have no frame of reference for what came before. And beyond physical safety, the expansion of women's possibilities to learn, to choose, to create, to move through the world as full participants in it is a genuine revolution in what human life can be. Knowledge is available to everyone. Kyle knows his territory with extraordinary depth. He knows it in ways most modern people will never know any place. But he will live and die within a relatively small geographic radius, knowing a relatively small number of things with no way to access the knowledge of anyone beyond his immediate circle. The democratization of learning, The fact that anyone with access to a library or an internet connection can now explore virtually any subject in human knowledge is something that would transform Kayal's world in ways he could not begin to imagine. Global coordination against shared threats. The scientific response to COVID-19 was imperfect in many ways, but the global community identified a new pathogen, sequenced its genome, and developed multiple effective vaccines in under a year. In a world without modern science, that virus would have moved through the human population with no possibility of a medical counter-response. The capacity to coordinate across the entire world against a shared threat is something that has never existed in human history until now. These things are real. They have saved lives in the hundreds of millions. They have extended human possibility in ways that should not be dismissed. The honest, difficult, important question is not whether the modern world is worse than the ancient one. It is not. In many crucial, measurable ways, it is better. The question is whether, in building this world, we have lost something we have not yet found a way to replace. Whether the things we optimized for, speed and efficiency and abundance and reach and productivity, are in tension with the things we evolved to need, and whether we are asking that question clearly enough to find an honest answer. Part 12. The space between two worlds. Let's come back to Kayal at the window. It is very late. He has been in this world for a full day and night. He has eaten food that did not satisfy him in the way he expected. He has been in rooms with hundreds of people and felt more alone than he ever has. He has heard sounds that his body registered as threats, and then had to re-register again and again as simply the ambient soundtrack of a world that never fully quiets. He finds a large window, in a quiet corner of a building that is beginning to settle into the particular stillness of the very late hours. 2 in the morning maybe. 3. The hour when even cities become somewhat still, not stormed, not here, not ever here, but still enough that you can hear one thing at a time rather than everything at once. He sits down in front of the window and he looks out, not with confusion anymore, not with the desperate scanning of someone trying to make sense of too much too fast, just with a quiet, patient attention. The attention of a person who knows how to wait, who knows that watching something, really watching it, without agenda, without urgency, is not a passive act but an active one of the oldest and most important ones. He watches a car move through the street below, its headlights casting 2 sharp pools of white on the pavement, then gone around a corner. He watches the lit window in the building across the street, a shape behind the glass, just a shape, nothing specific, the shadow of a person in a room. Then the light goes out. The window goes dark, someone just went to sleep. He looks up for stars. He finds 2 or 3 of the brightest ones struggling up through the glow of the city. He looks at them for a long time. Studies of light pollution have found that more than a third of humanity cannot see the Milky Way from where they live. When cities have experienced major blackouts, the kind that happen when power grids fail, observatories have received calls from people who saw something strange in the sky and didn't know what it was. Something cloud-like, something vast, and something they had never seen before. The cloud was the Milky Way, the structure of the galaxy we inhabit, the galaxy that contains every star every human being has ever seen or named, or navigated by or wished upon, invisible to millions of people because we have filled the night with so much of our own light that we can no longer see the universes. Kayal looks at the 2 or 3 stars he can find, and they are still there, still beautiful, still the same stars that have been sending their light toward this planet for so long that some of them no longer exist by the time the light arrives. Still the same ancient light that guided navigators and anchored the stories of every human culture that ever tried to make sense of where we came from and why. Still there. We just need to get quiet enough and dark enough to see them. In his chest, in that chest with the same heart and the same lungs as yours, something moves. Not grief exactly, not longing in a backward-facing way, but a recognition. The sense of something that should be here and is not. The absence of fire. The absence of voices he knows, the absence of the story that would have been told by now if there were a fire and a group and a night that was dark enough to look up and see the full sky. He is still human. He is still, in every way that counts, us. And he is sitting at a window in the middle of the modern night, watching everything we built and everything we forgot, waiting for someone to begin. Part 13. What the ancient human is asking for. The ancient human inside you is not asking for much. He is not asking you to throw your phone into the sea. He is not asking you to give up the medicine or the clean water or the global communication or the central heating. He has been inside you for your entire life. He knows this world. He has been adapting to it continuously, patiently, doing the best he can with the environment you provide. He is not naive and he is not demanding. He's asking for a little darkness at the end of the day. Not complete blackout, not anything dramatic. Just an hour maybe before sleep, where the screens go down and the lights get dim, not as a discipline or a sacrifice, as a gift to the oldest chemistry in your body, the machinery that has been trying to do its job for your entire life and needs a real signal to work with. The melatonin system is not a preference. It is a biological process 4 billion years old. Give it the darkness, let it do what it has always done. He's asking for a meal that you actually eat. Not every meal, just one, eaten slowly, with someone you genuinely want to be near, made of things you can recognize as real food, not in front of a screen, not between tasks. Just a meal that is the thing you are doing, while the people at the table are the people you are with. He's asking for the kind of friendship where you can say the real thing, not the kind of connection that exists primarily in posts and comments and brief acknowledgements, the kind where someone has heard the version of you that you don't usually show, the uncertain version, the struggling version, the version that sometimes doesn't know what it's doing, and stayed. The kind who would come over if something went wrong. He's asking for a walk without a purpose, no step count goal, no podcast filling the silence, no destination that needs to be reached, just you and the world and your body moving through it at the speed that human legs were designed for, which is exactly fast enough to see things and slow enough to actually see them. He is asking for silence that is not empty, not the silence of avoidance, the silence of someone who has gotten still enough that the background, the actual background, the real sounds of the real world, the quality of the air, the small facts of the present moment, can be heard. The silence of a person who is here, actually here, not divided across a dozen invisible demands. He is asking you to let something reach you, to not scroll past it, not consume it at accelerated speed while doing something else, to let a story arrive in real time and sit with you for its actual duration, to let it mean something, to let it land. These are not large asks, they are very old asks. And the part of you that is Kael, the part that has been patient and quiet and adaptable for a long time, would feel something in the quiet hours after you tried even one of these things that is difficult to describe but very easy to recognize, the feeling of being slightly more yourself. Part 14, the fire is still going. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is sitting around a real fire. Not a decorative one, not a fire pit on a social media story. A real working fire in a real community, with real people around it who know each other's names and histories and the specific sound of each other's silences. Somewhere, in the Kalahari, in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, in the mountains of Ethiopia, in a fishing village that does not have regular electricity. People are doing tonight what people have done every single night for as long as we have had fire. They are together. They are warm. Someone is telling a story, and somewhere else in the world, in a city, in a suburb, in a house or a small apartment or a single quiet room, someone is lying in the dark listening to a voice. Maybe this voice, letting someone take something complicated and human and real and turn it slowly into words, which is also, in its own modern form, the same ancient thing. You are at the fire too. You have always been at the fire. It just looks a little different now. The fire is a speaker, maybe, or a pair of headphones, or a screen with the light turned all the way down. The story is arriving through different technology, but the experience, one person speaking in the dark, another person listening in the dark, the invisible thread between them made of language and attention, and the shared knowledge that someone else knows what it is to be alive, and has thought about it carefully enough to try to put it into words. That experience is exactly what it has always been. You're not alone in the dark, you are gathered, along with everyone else who is listening to this tonight, around the same fire, just in different rooms, in different cities, in different time zones. All of us lying in whatever dark we have managed to arrange, listening to the same words. The ancient human inside you, and patient, quiet, built for exactly this, is leaning in. He's been waiting for the story to begin. It has begun. You are Kael going to sleep. Not under the full sky, he could see that you mostly cannot. Not beside a fire that has been burning all evening. Not surrounded by 50 known, trusted faces, but in your own way, in your own time, in the world that is yours. You are the same creature. You carry the same ancient heart. You have the same old hunger for the same old things. And tonight, in whatever room you're in In whatever city or town or quiet corner of the world, the fire is still going. The story is still being told. You're still gathered around it. Lie down, close your eyes, let the voice be the fire, sleep. If this story reached you tonight, if it gave you something to think about, or a few minutes of quiet in the middle of an otherwise noisy week, or just the particular comfort of a voice in the dark, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Every like and every subscription helps these stories find more people lying in the dark tonight, looking for something slow and human and true to listen to. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love knowing who is out there in the dark with me. We are all in the end still gathered around the same fire, just in different rooms. Good night.